much. I apologize to everybody for having to wear blues. After 17 years of retirement, I could fit in my service dress blue. But I trashed the whites, particularly the white shoes. Said I'm not going to sell ice cream in a Del Webb Sun City community. So that was the only reason we keep the white shoes. So I apologize for dragging out the blues out of you too early. The Navy is much more than a job or service to the country. It is a way of life. It gets in your blood. It is in Mark's blood and his entire family. Most service members, when they leave the service or when they're still in, will have a lovely walk for awards, commendations, promotion. Mark and Teresa's house, the entire home, is a lovely for the pride they have in the Navy and their family. It's shared equal, with equal positions of respect. The number of people that were there at dinner last night shows that that love of family is not just starting with Mark and Teresa. It goes back to Jack and Linda and to the uncles and the cousins that were here to honor him today. It's a good thing he showed up today, not me still in the Garcia. That's a different point. I would like to make a comment that Teresa made a very beautiful Facebook about she is retiring too. And you are retiring from the Navy, but you can't leave it behind. You have put up with the toughest job. The Navy life. My wife would vouch that when I deployed the first time, I pulled the keys out of and pulled the entire lock mechanism out of the station wagon so that she had to fix it. And I'm sure Teresa has done the same thing with the washer and dryer will break as soon as the last line is off or as soon as the flyaway is done. So thank you very much for your service, and Mark really appreciates it. I was Mark's first CO on the USS Ray. My presence here, I'm here to honor Mark because I knew him when he didn't walk on water. He could barely keep his head above water. He always kept a very high profile with me because they had a delinquent list for submarine qualification delinquents. Mark was permanently on the delinquent list. They're sub-quals. And then there was a light bulb that went off, and I think Teresa lit the light. Said, stop wasting your time and my time by spending that extra 2 hours on the boat every day. So I credit her for helping get him off. But who's still chasing the problem. And in our experience, I'm one of the few. He's got a lot of medals. You get in the program, it's listed as his achievement medals and his commendation medals. The medals of terrorism, volunteer medal. I'm the only one that didn't give him a medal. We got a sailor of the quarter, we got him a constant land letter of commendation, and we got him 2 captain's medals. Fly by night, coming back from Myrtle Beach, cutting it to the last minute, flying down the road at 5 o'clock in the morning and the rear tire blows. And nobody will stop at 5 o'clock in the morning to help these derelicts on the way from Myrtle Beach to Charleston. So, and there was a glory. I had heard that he had watched the ship go under the Cooper River Bridge, but that's an exaggeration. It was just a sea story that he added. So we took Mark and busted him from Petty Officer 3rd back to Seaman. And we restricted him a whole bunch of time and told him that Teresa could not be down there for every night for dinner. Matter of fact, Teresa had the same restriction. She had to stay away. and taken a big attitude change. Taken an attitude and finished his 4 years and gotten out. He didn't, and I'm proud of him for that. He pursued qualifications at a record rate, finally got off and stuff and did it, and superior performance of his duties throughout the next deployment. He was a cornerstone of my navigation team, which included I think a senior chief Pete, Larry Pete, but he was the battle stations plotter, he was the geo plotter. I always tried to screw him up in the navigation team by lowering periscope and see if he could still do the job and find out where we were. But after that, when we were on deployment, the XO, myself, and the navigator looked around and said, how do we pay him back for his good work? And we went back into the rules, and this is one that I had never done, but we had figured out that if you do another captain's mass, you could restore him in rank. So we did this as a surprise to him, and I did, the captain's mass was always in public, it was always in the mess deck. So you'd always get people, bleachers set up there depending on what the piece was. So here was Mark Nichols going into the captain's mass, and he didn't know what was going on. So he was quite surprised, and we restored him back in rank, such that he could wear gold and get all of his payback, which Teresa was happy, even though since we were deployed, she didn't know about it at the time. And I learned something that we could do and be a motivator for both Mark as well as the rest of the crew. That no matter how badly things would happen, you could always turn them around through hard work. I found out from his dad that I inherited his problem. Jack relayed that there was a question whether Mark would ever get into the Navy, and that was not in the bio that the master of ceremony read, and that eggs were for omelets. Well, Mark, before his entering the Navy, used them for egging the superintendent's house. So there was a good chance that he would have fallen off the program. His value to me was most demonstrated by his self-confidence. He took the time, knocked on my stateroom door, and said, Capt, I need you to come out and see what the OD is doing. So he would be that confident to risk his time with the officer of the deck and say, Captain, you need to see what's going, because it's a risk to you. And I appreciated that, and I valued that kind of performance throughout his career. At the last Ray reunion, Mark and I talked about all the changes that's happened in the Navy and other things, but one thing that came out was that Mark indicated that based upon his performance, he would not have been allowed to re-enlist, that he would have been run out. And I personally regret that, because I've seen so many guys that would run into a captain's mast and then turn into the sailor of the quarter or sailor of the year and earn their way back. They just need to mature. And the fact that he wouldn't have been allowed to re-enlist by his peers, to me that's a disservice, and I hope you guys can do well and survive. He has always performed superbly, whether it be a plotter in the navigation, tactician as a geo-plotter, ANAV, photographer, and the master of deployment debriefs. Mark always was comfortable stepping out of the box, looking for new ways to improve the computer utilization of everything from the BMS system to a maneuvering board program or whatever. For the 2 SSNs and the 2 SSBNs and 1 GN and 3 shore tours. I looked through all of those comments, and Teresa was nice enough to send them. Trepang said he is my QM division. Best ANAV I've served with. The number one ANAV in Squadron 16. A self-starter. Technological genius. Mentor for the ships, for the other ships in the squadron, for the submarine force, and as a leader. He also mentored the Sea Cadets and volunteered both in New London and down here, from everything from hurricane response to the Sea Cadets taking care of them. John F. Kennedy said that he could imagine a no more rewarding career than any man who may have asked in this century what he did to make his life worthwhile. I think can respond with a great deal of pride and satisfaction. I served in the United States Navy. In each sub there are men who in the hour of emergency or peril at sea can turn to each other. These men are ultimately responsible to themselves and each other for all the aspects of operation of this sub. They are the crew. They are the ship. It was my pleasure to serve with my shipmate, Mark, in my crew, my ship. Thank you very much.